31 minutes, 32 minutes, 33 minutes, the line of sight up, the central clock in the office can point to 7:35, the factory outside the window suddenly noisy, followed by fighting and shouting. Everything that happened next gradually coincided with the dream, and finally the factory manager came, took away the two workers who quarreled, reprimanded the content of the two people and even the dream word for word. Originally this is really a foreknowledge dream. According to the dream, it is now 5 days from the outbreak of zombies. At first only in individual cities appeared the virus. The official soon issued a news, telling netizens that this is only a highly contagious flu, do not panic, can be controlled, and also called on everyone to stock up on videos at home, in case of need to quarantine lack of supplies. But in just one day, the first outbreak of the city has fallen, and the virus has also emerged in neighboring provinces and cities. A few colleagues and I hid in my parents' video yard, and 5 days later, the official broadcast stopped and cities fell. Then not long after, I reopened the factory, looking at the workers coming and going in the factory. This is only 10 days away from the Spring Festival. The next 2 days, the workers will return to their hometown. I believe that I do not have the ability to save all of them, and in the dream of such ridiculous things they will not believe. Let them go back to their hometown, with their parents and children who have not been seen for a long time. Perhaps the best time is not much. I quickly took out my cell phone to call the supplier. If the zombies do come, then stockpiling enough supplies is the right choice. For an average person like me, armed to the point of zero, it would be a dead end to follow the lead of a movie in which he partied while searching for supplies during the apocalypse. Although the existing materials in the factory were enough for the remaining people to survive for a month, if the zombies still exist after a month, when the supplies are exhausted, there is only death. The other end is connected. I speak first. Uncle Chan, your side. How much more material? I all want to see. The pair seems to be surprised, stuttering to me, sure really want this much? Yeah, well, after all, I just sent them a few orders this morning because of the recent drop in sales, and, a big deal. After getting a positive answer from me, he hung up the phone with joy and sent me to call my parents again as soon as possible. At this time, they were inspecting the location of the new factory in the neighboring province. In the dream, they did not come back until the outbreak of zombies. Something big has happened at the factory. I can't deal with it. Come back. Mom and Dad on the phone that I can't do anything, can only be a salted fish, but still buy a return ticket. 4 days before the outbreak of the zombie virus, I placed an order with the largest local drinking water supplier for 768 barrels of water in large sizes, citing the development of a new beverage production line on site, but I now have to do much more than that. During this period, the goods stored in the warehouse that were about to be sent to each retail point were pressed down by me, and the payment for goods and liquidated damages were transferred to me, almost all the time. I also bought enough solar panels from a solar company to cover the top floor of my office. The address of the solar company is in the south, the decoration team is also located in the south, and the factory is in the north, which is the two extremes of the city, but they came quickly. After all, I gave more than half the market price. Don't blame me for being cautious, but in the end, the most terrible thing is the heart. So, even if, after the apocalypse, they guess something based on my actions, there's no way they'd take a huge risk to get here. I asked the arrived decoration team to reinforce all the doors of each floor. The standard is to be able to withstand the impact of a car, and all the glass above the 3 floors are replaced with bulletproof one-way glass, and the glass below the 3 floors is affixed with one-way film, and fortunately, the decoration master is enough to finish within 2 days. As soon as we started work here, the call from the supplier came earlier than expected. Factory gate 1 by 1 of the big truck drove in. I did not think about whether to choose the point in the school district at home. Old broken small in the supermarket alone to purchase supplies will be safer, but the house is the original parents in order to let me have better education resources, spend a huge amount of money to buy, worthy of the old broken small. I even suspect that a few more zombies will be able to dig him down, and it is better to select the data in the well-equipped venues, and the stockpiling of food factories is a normal thing, and basically will not arouse suspicion. I stood outside the factory building, looking at the 12 big trucks full, grinning. Supplier Chen uncle in the side with me grinning, and beat the chest, bike and shoe can empty the warehouse, give you work together. Hearing this, I began to frown. Uncle, is this all the stock in your warehouse? He nodded and burned a cigarette. His hands were full of holes and cracks, the nails were full of black rice, and he slowly opened his mouth after spit out smoke rings. The dream of the stars was to study abroad, and I earned more money for him as tuition fees. Xin is his only daughter. Uncle Chen is a fellow of my parents. When the opening helped the family a lot. I thought about it again and again, pointed to the last 3 cars coming in, and asked him to drive these 3 cars back, and he was instantly nervous. I hurriedly told him that it was not a return, but the warehouse in the factory could not put it down for the time being. I made a condition that the 3 trucks be kept at their house, in the care of the 3 of them. I don't trust people, and if I don't meet the conditions, I will return, and that's all I can do. Chen uncle faced doubts, but also repeatedly promised, told me that I must rest assured after walking. 8 trucks containing grain, oil, vegetables, fruits, and meat, plus the existing materials in the warehouse and the vegetarian food and canned food in the factory that I have pressed down, and the drinking water that has not arrived, are enough to fill the entire 3 floors of the office area, which can definitely be achieved in the end. We're 3 days away from the zombie virus, the windows and doors will be reinforced and the solar panels will be installed today, and Mom and Dad will arrive at the city station at 8 o'clock tonight. I have one more important thing to do, and they say the end of the day is the end of the virgin, but what about the bad guys? Of course it's the first strike. Today is shutdown day. I rented several buses for the workers in advance, took them to the nearest station, and subsidized them with the most generous bonus and annual fee in years. When I walked out of the office, I met the security guard Su Yankee, who was embarrassed, rubbing his hands, and his pants were covered with dust. I know what he wants to say to me. He wants to beg me to let him stay during the spring festival 3 times the salary. She is not a local Hyukao, her daughter in a private primary school, she needs the money. I remember the dream when the zombies erupted, everyone panicked and fled into the office building, but the supplies were still in the warehouse. When we were all worried about how to transfer the supplies, Su Yangqing told us that he was a veteran and volunteered to lead away the zombies in the warehouse. We seized his microblog incident and moved the supplies into the building, but he never came back. His wife, Yin Wan, also an ordinary worker in the factory, was almost blind from crying and left quietly before long to go back to his daughter who was alone at home. I don't know if he saw his daughter in the end, because after losing their shelter, I was buried in the rice when the treasurer Gao Jian knocked the skull, took the right to control the materials. But this time is my advantage. I intend to leave Su Yangqing family. First of all, he is a veteran, the value of force is not low. Secondly, can sacrifice themselves to save everyone's people. I do not think she will have bad eyes, and rounded up, she also counts as a life-saving grace for me. Come to think of it, Lao Su, This spring festival you and your wife stay to watch the scene, and bring your daughter. I think her name is Xiao Yan, right? She was a little flattered, head point like Xiao Ji pecking rice. Right to call Xiao Yan, 8 years old this year, but the child is still small, afraid of trouble to the factory, let her own at home. She is very clever, independent, will wash, will cook, mention her daughter, her eyes are full of love and pride. I still insist on letting him bring her daughter, he saw my insistence, not good refuse, or should come down. After leaving him behind, I called everyone else into the office building conference room. After waiting for more than 10 minutes in the conference room, Gao Jiantai, the finance director, arrived late with his gang. He was always so arrogant and self-immolated. I held the palm of my hand to restrain the impulse to open his day spirit belt, an office day and night to get along. Did not expect that he was in order to reduce the consumption of materials, take away the right to control materials, gave me a fatal blow. But now he won't have that chance. I opened my desk drawer and found a dozen travel vouchers I had booked in advance. In addition to the old Su family and the young engineer in the factory, the rest of them were almost all fair-weather friends of Gao Jian's usual friends. Most of them squandered their money on weekdays, did not bring any money home, and did not have the face to go home for the new year, so they stayed. I turned my eyes to the engineer standing by the door of the conference room, an ordinary college student, just a year out of school, who was in charge of checking and repairing machines. If not in my dream, after I fell down, he was the only one who rushed out to fight with Gao Jian, and finally was suppressed by Gao Jian's friends. I should have thought of a way to send him away. I quickly sent the travel vouchers to Gao Jian's group. I told them that this is the factory to thank them for years of pay, to give them rich benefits, despise them happy, not knowing that what they have in their hands will become their fate. City, tourism mecca, the earliest outbreak of zombies. At this point, all worries will be solved. When Gao Jian left, he asked me why the factory had recently been in a big fight with the decoration gang. I smiled at him, go back to prepare, otherwise it will be too late to start tomorrow. At the end, when the decoration team finished the task and came to hand over, I gave them a higher reward than the contract, and asked them to stock up on food and drink at home. Recently, the flu has become serious again. 2 days before the outbreak of the zombie virus, the drinking water I ordered was put down by the manufacturer. The business manager told me that because the factory equipment was aging, the output could not keep up, and the order of another major brand in the room could not be completed on time, so the management wanted to misappropriate my goods first. I'm kidding. People's lives are at stake, and given my insignificant, totally unremarkable personal abilities, I decided to tell my parents. When they came back last night, they also asked me for a long time. See, I hesitated and did not know how to explain. Dad looked at the company's sharp decline in the account balance is hate iron is not steel, and I can't do it, and finally just said I don't care, anyway, the factory was left to you, how you want to toss how toss. Mom and Dad lived most of their lives, and they built a lot of weird things. When he heard me tell him everything, and saw my serious expression, he believed me 80%. When I said the reason for the hiccup fart, Dad red eyes, gnashing teeth, North Chen, you mean you were knocked to death by a high sword and then I picked up a wrench and I went out, and shit. Mom, let's see if I can beat his dad to death. I can't laugh and cry, my mother quickly stopped him, listen to what Baikan said first, what's the hurry? I thought dark father weekdays of the old good willfulness, learned that I so, Gao Jian a line of people or will be intentional, did not expect him to snap a wrench away. I am a little surprised. Dad, You will not think I ruthless. What's there to be cruel about? If there's a zombie outbreak, that means your dream is real, then they deserve it, and if there's no zombie outbreak, then we pay them to cross, and they should thank us. I thought about it. It's this guy. After learning the whole thing, my parents hastily finished their meal and went to the drinking water company. When they ran the field, they have seen what wind and waves, this thing they must be able to deal with. When I started, my father called me aside. Baikan, your mother and I still feel that we have to find an opportunity to confess with Lao Su, but also let them have a psychological preparation, not to be caught off guard. I nodded. I also think so. After seeing my parents drive away, I find engineers in the machine factory to take care of. Cut to the chase. Can you fly a drone? He froze down. Naive touch his head. I will not only open, I will repair. Very good. Will repair solar hair. Computer, can you fix the freezer? Will it be good? Strong points need such a high sophisticated talent. So far, I decided to stay the candidate. I and my parents and Su Yangqing family and take care of Zhao Yu. Obviously I asked the Zhong'er monk, feel confused, but did not wait for his reaction. I will pull him away, with Dong Hang to buy drones then. It's better if I just run around on my own. When Su Yangqing's security guard stopped, I called him out, gave him a bank card, and asked him to go to several stores in the city to purchase sanitary products. I remember that he has a truck driver's license. There was an empty truck in the factory. I was buckling the seat belt when Zhao Yu finally asked in the co-driver, what happened? I turned to look at him. Anyway, sooner or later is going to tell them. Young people's ability to accept than parents. This middle-aged and elderly people better. Have you ever seen a zombie movie? He nodded. If I said it wasn't a movie, then buy the thousands of tons of his supplies and stock them up. I was convinced by his words. This boy so easily believed that thousands of tons of material losses. He said easy, not to mention whether to buy bankruptcy. I am afraid to eat until the ground cannot eat all. So this is what you've been doing all these days, and I don't know. What do you think? He touched his hair and smiled sheepishly, which scared me into thinking that the company was going bankrupt, and he also posted several resumes on the recruitment app. I squeeze the wheel. I don't laugh, and if you want to find another way out, you can now. He hunched his neck and shook his head like a rattle. After learning that the trip was to buy drones, he opened his mouth and cried that he had a period of addiction to drones, and he made his own bankruptcy, but also screened out the best quality brands. He gave the store address is a distance. We drove for nearly an hour. Once into the store, the sales just came to me and did not stand. I opened directly. Ordered 10 drones, this instant from defiant to humble, but the store stock is insufficient to transfer from another branch, so there is a delay. So I took Zhao Yu to the nearby drugstore, and the two of us went separately to buy all kinds of vitamins and antipyretics from different drugstores to treat all kinds of basic diseases. When I met with Isatitis, I was stupidly carrying a big bag of Isatitis. You said Isatitis root to prevent colds. Can it prevent the loss of virus? Zhao Yu looked at another bag of Isatitis root in his hand and thought, what if after stuffing the pills in the trunk, I drove around a few more times and bought some binoculars and an array of electric cookware? This is really gonna run out of money. Zhao Yu was so tired that he collapsed in the co-pilot's arms, holding a large bag of medicine, and muttered that he was completely convinced that the zombies were coming soon, and I had no time to talk to him. Under my series of urging, the store finally transferred the goods, so the entire back seat of the car and the trunk were filled with materials, including the co-driver can only faintly see the personal line. After the difficult return to the factory, Su Yangqing is unloading the truck looking at a car full of daily necessities. I gave him a thumbs up. To the dinner point, there is Yan Wan cook. Everyone in the canteen after dinner, Parents came back with drinking water, Lowly deposit thoroughly clean up, drinking water manufacturers workers unloading see the gap, while everyone in the canteen, I intend to tell them the news of zombies. Yinwan with small Yan standing on the side of Su Yangqing, the face of an 8-year-old girl. But Yuan didn't follow me. I smiled at him, and he hid half his body behind his mother. I'm going to put it differently this time, because not everyone is comfortable with jade dreams. After processing, the whole story turned into my friend's work in the institute, which found the uncontrollable source location of the zombie virus with a very high mortality rate, and it will break out in the local city tomorrow. In order to appease people's emotions, the authorities will release relevant news and describe the zombie virus as a highly contagious flu. Su Yangqing and Yinwan, after listening, face immediately tense up. I am patient to appease, don't be afraid. The virus spread to us here also have to the day after tomorrow. Now we have enough materials, the reinforcement of the place are strengthened, then as long as quietly waiting for rescue. Su Yangqing listened to understand why I insisted on letting him bring his daughter, pulling a family of 3 will kneel towards me. Dad quickly walked over to help them 3 people, push and pull outside the organization to move. The foreman came in. Big brother, how do you store so much goods in this warehouse? My parents and I looked at each other and started to get nervous. Dad gave us a look to relax, then pulled a cigarette from his shirt pocket and handed it to the foreman. Isn't it intended to expand production next year? The foreman took the smoke and lit it. Oh, and nodded. He squinted around, wondering what he was thinking. Not a good time to be noticed. I had an idea, picked up the mobile phone to pretend to call Lao Yang. Right, that is, tomorrow. My sudden reaction made everyone look around. I made the eyes of my father. Dad, I agreed with Lao Yang that we would go back to our hometown for the new year tomorrow. He asked someone to transport these works to the warehouse on North Central Road, watching the foreman with a smile. Brother, I just want to ask you, do not lack of nursing workers? It seems that they are no longer needed. Dad reacted very quickly, caught his words, put his shoulder around him and walked out. It seemed that he could fool past. We looked at each other a few eyes. There are some worries. I laughed. Don't be afraid. We will survive. With a day to go before the zombie outbreak, today's task is not easy. We need to move supplies from the warehouse to the reinforced dog office building. Everyone got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and a few people loaded the freezer onto the cart and shipped it to the 3rd floor. My mother and Xiao Yan, who had no advantage in energy work, were responsible for loading the food stored at room temperature onto the cart. When the materials were almost transferred, after Zhao Yu's reminder, I quickly asked them to stop and left the remaining small amount of materials in the warehouse. It was not that I was generous, mainly because no one might notice before the end of the world, but after the end of the world, the food room was an important resource to support people's survival. A small number of supplies are set up to protect other supplies from detection, and I have far more supplies than I normally need, so I don't have to worry about running out of supplies. At my request, the food boxes were torn to pieces, and the food was piled up in a disorderly manner to create the appearance of looting. That way, even if anyone found it, they'd think most of the supplies had already been taken. After a day's work, by the evening, everyone was almost paralyzed. My mother brought a lot of quilts and clothes in the factory dormitory, and we lived in the dormitory on the 6th floor, and my father locked the corridor door leading to the 3rd floor from the inside. As I knew, there was an unknown virus in the terrain overnight, and after tonight, the world will never be the same.